So hi everyone, good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining us today for the Women in Social Housing National Webinar. And it's hosted today by our Wish Midlands region. So my name is Rose Klemperer and I'm the co-chair of the Wish Midlands region. And in my day job, I'm a senior associate solicitor at Pennington's Manches Cooper. So today's session is all about social media and building your social profile in a digital world. And I think the number of people we've got joining us today really speaks to the pertinence of this session. We're just over 12 months into the sort of virtual world we entered 12 months ago and have all become fully immersed in a more digital world and way of working. So I'm really pleased to see so many Wish members here today. So just by way of a bit of housekeeping before we get started, I introduce our lovely speaker, Val. The session is due to be wrapped up by 1:30 today, and so you can have a bit of a screen break and a lunch break then. And there should hopefully be some time for questions at the end. So please do put your questions into the chat box. We'll keep an eye on them and we'll pick them up at the end. And as normal, please do keep yourself on mute throughout the session unless you have some burning question that you want to shout out to Val. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to introducing our great speaker today. And I'm really pleased to say that we're joined by Val Hassel, who's an associate consultant from Creative Bridge, which is a strategic and creative agency that I think a lot of you will be familiar with because they work across the housing sector. And Val herself is an online profiling and presence expert, and she has more than 15 years experience of building and growing brands. She specialises in personal profiling for housing leaders to support corporate positioning and business growth. And she's going to discuss a few things with us today, including how best to use social media for networking in the virtual world, as well as lots of other things as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Val. So thanks very much, Val.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of the session and what we're going to cover today. So firstly, I'm going to give you a quick look at social media, the big picture. Obviously, a lot's changed in the last 12 months and how that's impacted how people are using social media. Then we're going to do a stop at what that means for you and your organisation. Then we're going to do a bit of a practical time for you to think about, well, how you want to use social and what that means for you and what you want to do with your profile. So you can take away some practical things to start putting into practice. Then a look at some best practice, some people that I think are doing a good job. And as Rosie mentioned, there should be some time at the end for some questions as well. So hope you enjoy the session. Here we go. Okay, so you've already had a little introduction to me. Yeah, that's who I am, personal brand and messaging specialist. And like Rosie mentioned, actually, I've been supporting the social housing sector now for 15 years. So I started at Creative Bridge, my career at Creative Bridge, and have had most of my Marcoms experience supporting organisations to get their message out there. But a couple of years ago, I actually set up my own business to help creative entrepreneurs and change makers grow their own businesses. And for me, that was the start really of my social media and visibility journey, which when it comes to building your own profile is absolutely the journey that you are going on and getting your face out there and having your voice heard. And that really is a place from that I'm coming from today. That's where my experience is based. I've grown my business on social through using connections, and later this year I'll be sharing sort of more of my story on that, more of the journey of building a profile in a TEDx talk. So that's a little bit about me. And to start with, what I'm going to do is just give you a really brief snapshot of what's changing in social and what's happening right now. So I think that we know without a doubt that actually the last 12 months has changed everything. Now, I was thinking about, you know, how quickly social has exponentially grown. So actually Facebook, for example, has only been around for less than 20 years. 2004 it set up. So when you think about that compared to the landscape now, it's just crazy, you know, the way we're using it. So actually it's around just over 50% of the world's population are on social, over 4 billion users I think that the stats are getting to. Most people on mobile, so when you're putting out content, remembering that actually mobile is the platform that people are consuming on. But the amount of use, you know, 2.5 days 2.5 hours a day, the amount that people are using it for work is just going exponentially up. And, you know, if you think about how many platforms you're on, the average user is on 8 platforms. So whether you are managing your profile or not, you will have a profile and a presence across all those platforms that represent you. So that's a broad brush picture, and at the end there's a couple of places you can go for lots more information on what's going on in the landscape if you want that. But what's changing in social media? Well, just to give you a glimpse, really, I think the changing landscape is about the way that people are using it, and that's absolutely been accelerated by the pandemic. So, for example, live views doubled during 1 week in Italy. So people want like in the moment, consumable info that feels real, that feels tangible. They're craving connection, and social media has been the place where many people have gone to find that connection that's been removed from our physical world. And video has been popular and remains hugely popular and is predicted to remain popular. And absolutely, this sense of wanting real humans, wanting real interaction, that's a part of that, I would say. It's getting a lot cleverer, so things like AR and VR, where we're interacting with digital to change what we are experiencing. So, you know, you can try on a haircut or things like that, or you can have an experience with people in real time through VR. That's predicted to become bigger. Things like influencer marketing, so people building their own followings and brands engaging and reaching new audiences through those people, absolutely predicted to increase. But as a result of that, and as a result of social just becoming more and more powerful, really, in terms of that, as you would expect, there is going to be and needs to be more regulatory control. And I think just this week there's been another news piece about Facebook having a massive data leak. So there has to be more control around that. And I think finally, just to say that social is, I always think that social is just a channel. It's just a collection of people and what matters to people expressed in different mediums. So things like inclusivity, they have obviously been on the top of agendas recently in terms of Black Lives Matter and diversity inclusion taking a higher priority in organisations' plans and how they show they're dealing with those matters. But social means that we have to be more transparent as personal brands, as organisational brands, about what we're standing for and how we're dealing with these big matters. And people are expecting that, and that need for authenticity and that need for transparency is more paramount than ever, and I think will continue to be so. So really broad picture of the social media landscape and how it's changing and what consumers are expecting now from brands, individual and corporate. So what does this mean for you as a human, as an individual wanting to build your profile in the online world? So I think there's sort of 3 areas or 3 things that we can look at initially. And number 1 is around connection. So particularly because over the last 12 months, we've had that connection removed from us in many ways, people are craving and turning to digital to connect. And I think there's an opportunity here for you to then use social to connect strategically with the people that you want to, but also to create connection between groups of people that you want to create connection between, because their behaviour has changed and therefore they are more naturally turning to social to give them that. So there's an opportunity there for you to use it in that way. I think the next thing is credibility. So I think you have an opportunity as an individual to build credibility in a way that perhaps you might not have in the past. You know, you might have had to write a book or speak on stages or whatever else to get credibility in a particular area. But actually now you have a personal profile, you know, whether you're specifically managing it, whether you're specifically thinking about it, but, you know, whether you go for a job or a role or something, one of the first places people often look is your profile, your LinkedIn profile. It's there, it's your shop window, and you have the opportunity to manage that. And you can build a lot of credibility and a lot of authority by actually talking about and giving value with topics and content that you want to be known as an expert for. So absolutely an opportunity there. And then thirdly, really just conversation. I think that the wonderful thing about social and the challenging thing is that people can say their views. But the great thing is that there are great conversations going on. There are really massive opportunities to learn and also to add to conversations meaningfully as an individual in the spaces that you feel you have something to say. And people want to hear authentic voices. They want to hear different viewpoints, and they want to learn. So as an individual, I think there's opportunities there for you to grow your profile, to be known for the things you want to be known for, and to connect with people that in the past you might not have been as easily able to connect with. So that's for you. And so what does this mean for your organisation? So the things for the organisation that I think are important to reflect on is that customers expect more. They expect more engagement, they expect more transparency, as mentioned, and they expect you to evidence that in what you're putting out, and then stand up to that in your actions. So there is a lot more judgment. You can now monitor sort of brand sentiment, how people are feeling about your brand at any point in time, through this is the conversations people are having on social, which is massively powerful in terms of up-to-date market insight. So you can find out what people are interested in, what they're talking about, and you can market or create conversations, events, whatever it might be around that information. But also, when things go wrong, which I'm sure we've seen sort of examples of recently, it happens quite quickly. And then I think for the organisation, there's massive opportunities as well in terms of sort of amplifying your reach. So if you think about, your organisation has one voice, but when you put all the individuals together, there are multiple voices that are speaking, can speak on behalf of your organisation, which just makes your presence, or can make your presence, far more powerful. Now, this isn't without its challenges in terms of getting staff or getting people to speak on behalf of your brand. Some people may struggle with it. I think of it like a language. So we have to learn that language. We have to learn and find our way to communicate that feels good and feels authentic to us. If you have maybe a CEO at the top of an organisation that doesn't believe in it, then actually, or doesn't feel comfortable with it, then there are challenges there as well. To get it to be a part of the culture, to talk about who you are as an organisation through personal profiles. But I do think there is massive opportunity that organisations, and I'll show you a couple of examples at the end, are really starting to get their heads around and do a really good job of in terms of amplifying reach. And I think for the sector in particular, what's interesting is that consumers on social, they support brands, they support causes that genuinely make a difference, and the sector does that. So it's in that way, it's one step ahead because it already has a genuine purpose and is making a genuine impact. So using social to amplify that, massive opportunities there. Okay, so this is just a quick thing really on the unwritten rules. So I think one of the things and one of the challenges that often stops us from getting visible on social or raising our profile on social is that it sometimes can feel a little bit like there's these cultures, these subcultures going on, and we don't quite know how to act or behave. No one sent us, the dress code or the equivalent, whatever that is on social. And so these are my 3 takeaways that I think they cover any platform, and anything that you want to do, just like really great starting points. And I think number 1, it's just, the clue is in the name. It's about being social. It's about human to human. When you see, someone like a post, or you see someone's profile, or you see there is a person behind every single post and every single profile. And I think the more that we can hold that in our heads, the more that we can go on to communicate and connect, the better social works for us, the better and more organic it feels. And then on the back of that, it's about being intentional. So if you've not watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, it's quite an interesting and slightly scary watch about how social gets in your brain and can sort of, it works to keep you on the platform. So it works to give you that feel-good dopamine if someone's liked my story and someone's commented and someone's engaging with me. And actually, it can be a bit of a rabbit hole, that it can be a bit of a time suck. So my number 2 absolute thing for you, I would say, and we'll talk about this in more detail as we go through into the more detail later, is about being clear about what you want out of it and putting your own boundaries around it and being intentional about what you're going in for and what ideally, you know, the value you want back from it. And then thirdly, it's about a long game. You don't show up on social overnight and change the world and your business or have a massive profile. It's a relationship, it's ongoing, it's personal to you, it will grow and it will change because you will grow and change. But actually showing up consistently and allowing that journey to be visible where appropriate, that will serve you really well. So they're quite broad principles, but they are absolutely where I think it's helpful to ground back into if you ever find yourself a bit like, I don't know where to start, or I'm not sure about this. Okay, so this next section, what we're going to do is just spend a little bit of time thinking about you and what you want to get out of social. So the intention is that you have some ideas that you can walk away with and start to implement and make changes to your profile on the back of the session. So the question that we're exploring is, if you could achieve one thing by improving your social, what would it be? So I want you to think about one challenge that you're currently facing in your role, in your job, or in your organisation, and just take a moment. If you've got something to write it down, just write it down. I can't see your faces, so I'm hoping that you're following instructions and you're not looking at the screen blankly. But just write something down, and the more specific you can be, the more value you will get out of this. So perhaps you don't know something about your business, perhaps you want to be known for something, perhaps you want to start a campaign about something, perhaps you are not sure career-wise what you want to do, perhaps you've got a goal around, I don't know, speaking at something. And then I want you to think about, okay, so how could social help me with this? What could I do with social? What could it do for me to help me overcome this challenge? So that might be about insight, might be about understanding things more about your audience. That might be about connecting with people that can help you on your mission. Or it might just be about actually peer support, networks to help you on your journey. Might be something else. So have a think just about actually what would that look like, what would that be, what could social do for me? And then just want you to think about, so who then are the people that you need to connect with or that you need to engage with on social to help you with that. So what we just want to take that top level goal and get really specific about who and what you're connecting with on social, because behind every profile is a person, and that's where the power is. Okay, so as we move through this next section, I just want you to hold that goal and that ideal for what social does for you in your head. Okay, so what creates a strong online profile? So this is the equation that I use for profile building, and it's really just two things that I think are super important, and there's lots of detail of how you do this, of course, and we're going to go through each one in turn and just take a moment to think about your profile and what you can do to start to improve either your difference or visibility. So difference is really about what makes you you, what makes you stand out, what do you stand for, and your visibility is about where you are seen. And when you put those together, so you're more clear about what you do and what you stand for and what's different about you, and you're more visible, you have a stronger presence. So that's ultimately how we build a stronger profile. It's always working towards one of those things. So I want you to think about, and if you're able to pull up a profile that you use on LinkedIn or Twitter, or even just Google yourself. Don't know when you last Google yourself, but that is all a part of your online presence. So when you Google yourself, what comes up? Do it now if you like. And are you happy with that? Is that telling the story of you? Is that saying, this is who this is what she's known for, or he's known for, this is what's different. So I like to break it down into these 4 areas in terms of your difference. So, and I want you to give yourself a mark out of 10 for the profile that you're choosing. So choose a profile just to look at, just as a sense check. And you can go back and use this for any of your other profiles or any of your top level Googles or any digital presence that you have. You can go back and sort of sense check this. So number 1 is your professional expertise. So normally in a business context, we want to be known for something. We want to be known as being an expert in something. So is it reflecting that? Is it clear what you're an expert in? Would you be happy if somebody said, oh, this is, and they are good at this, or they know about this, based on what's coming up for your profile? Is that accurate? Is that reflective? Give yourself a mark out of 10. And also, just to say, the more specific you are, the better, because getting known for one thing is much easier than getting known for lots of things, especially if you're fairly early in the stages of your sort of profile building journey. And then your personality. So going back to the principles, it's social. You know, people don't want to communicate with robots, they want to communicate with humans. So I strongly believe that it's important that we let a bit of our personality through. So that's sometimes about your tone of voice and the way you write things. I have quite a conversational style, and that conversational style, in the moment style, tends to work quite well for personal profiles, because actually you want people to feel like they're talking to you, like they're connecting with you. So how do you talk in real life, and is your social reflecting that? Is it showing a little bit about you, a little bit about what's different about you or your style? So the images you use for yourself are a part of that too. And you can talk about, of course, business topics, but sometimes it's nice just to share things that show you're human interspersed with that too. So give yourself a mark out of 10 about how well you're doing on your personality score. Would I feel like I knew you if I went and looked at your profile? And then the next one is purpose and passion. So some people have a real clear sense of purpose, and some people don't. But actually, being clear about, you know, the why you do what you do, really. This is your why. So why you are showing up, what you are doing and why you are doing it, and why it matters to you personally and to the world. That's really helpful, because when people see why you do what you do, and you can authentically represent that as an individual and on behalf of your organisation's brand, they are far more likely to want to join you or support you in your mission. So is there anything on your profile at the moment which is about why you do what you do, that's starting to show a little bit about what you're passionate about, what you care about? It's got a bit of energy behind it in that way. Give yourself a mark out of 10. And then finally, the people element, that comes back to the question we've just explored, which is, who do you want to connect with in order to overcome your challenge? Now, that might change depending on why you're coming up, but for the purpose of today, give yourself a mark out of 10 for the people that you're intending, and whether you're clear about you want to connect with those people for those things. So give yourself clarity around, are you talking about the conversations those people are going to be interested in? That's one way to think about it. Are you clear if you're looking at maybe your LinkedIn profile, is it clear on your about section who you want to connect with and why? And are you connected with them, literally, in terms of, are you following them and engaging on those conversations? So give yourself a mark out of 10 there. And I just want you now to have a moment to think about, so if you then had a 10 for each of those sections, what would that then look like for you? So I'm assuming not everybody's got 10 out of 10, otherwise we can all go home. But if you had a 10 out of 10 for each of those sections, how would that be different to what you've got now? Just to make yourself a couple of notes so you've got some practical stuff you can take away. what would you change? What would you show more? What do you need to show more personality? Or actually, do you need to just claim an area of expertise and start talking about it? Or actually sort of hiding a bit of like why you believe in what you do? Or you're just not connected to the right people? Like, what is 1 or 2 things that you could implement straight away to start to improve your profile and improve your sort of positioning there? Okay, so now we're going to do visibility. Hopefully you've all got something written down that you can take away straight away and implement and change. So visibility, so I've put it into 5 people types here, or 5 stages that you might be at. So we've got right from the ostrich, I don't really even bother or engage with social media, it's out there somewhere and I know I probably should, but actually, do I have to? That sort of end of the spectrum. Right to, you know, I browse occasionally, I lurk around on a few things, but not really engaging, and I know I probably should, to commenting on some things where it's piques your interest, to posting here and there, to the pro. You've got it down. You are, you know, you're covered. Again, you might want to go home, maybe not. We'll see. So where are you on 1 to 5, and maybe give yourself a mark out of 10 there. And I think when you're thinking about that, get really clear on where you want to be, because you don't have to be on every day. You don't have to be the pro that's posting every day. But what you do need is to be clear about how visible you want to be. So do you want to show up 3 times a week? Do you want to show up once or twice a month with a really clear article about your expertise? Do you want to join for really key conversations around certain topics that are really important to you personally and to your organisation? Clarity around what matters to you, thinking about your objective, thinking about what we looked at to start with, about that challenge you wanted to overcome. That's what needs to drive the visibility. So it can be really helpful to write down how often you want to engage and put that in your diary on a really practical note. So literally just half an hour slot, 3 times a week. That's what I commit to. That's manageable for me. That's going to build over time. That's a great way to do it, a great way to start. And then just notice what comes up. So when it comes to building a personal profile, we're stepping into the spotlight, and that can be a little bit scary for our egos. You know, fear of judgment. What will people think? Am I saying the right things? Am I going to make a typo? Probably. We're all human. But ultimately, allowing yourself to go, okay, is this real? Is this true? Is this actually life-threatening to me? Or is this, you know, making sure that you are clear about, again, why you're being visible is really important. So let yourself sort of explore the things that are coming up around why you can't do that or why you can't show up on social. And then just, I think a really useful thing to think to yourself is, if I knew that I would overcome the challenge that we identified in that section at the start, if I knew I could solve that, it would absolutely be fixed by getting visible and doing what I've committed to. Would that change how I feel about it and whether I'm prepared to do it? So that's a great check for you about whether this really matters to you to commit to it. And that's really important, I would say, for social in terms of your profile, is consistency and commitment to what you want to do at a level that works for you. So I hope that's given you some practical things around your visibility and your difference that you've written down, and that everyone's got something tangible that they can start to change and implement, whether that's putting a time slot in, whether that's going and being clearer about your difference, whatever that is. I hope you've got something just to get started there in terms of improving your digital profile right now. So now what we're going to move on to is I'm going to give you some sort of best practice examples that I hope will inspire you, that you can see some stuff about what I think is working, and again, get some ideas for what you could do for yourself or for your organisation. So firstly, just to start with some principles. So we've touched on some of these lightly, but I think they're worth recovering. So what what matters about social is that it is relevant and timely, and that it's genuine. So when you see brands talking about big issues, for example, you've got Microsoft here talking about its commitment to diversity. You've got Unilever talking about how it's tackling the pandemic and the crisis. You've got tourism brands still raising awareness and talking about tourism, but saying, actually, be safe, stay at home. It's important that actually what you're putting out is reflective of a wider context and sensitive to that, particularly as an organisational brand or a corporate brand, but also as a personal brand or personal profile as well. And it needs to be genuine. It maybe goes without saying, but it's, you know, it can be one tweet, it can be one thing that can underpin or undermine what you stand for as an organisation. And if somebody does say something, actually being willing to go there, being willing to say, yes, we've made a mistake, or this is what we're doing, that really matters. And it really matters that that's visible on social in real time, for people to actually trust you again. So because you can break trust quite quickly with social, with big brands. So yeah, be relevant, genuine, and timely as best practice principles. Be organic where you can to a platform. What I mean by that is respect the platform and what it's there for. So LinkedIn, for example, is primarily, I would say, known as a networking platform. Definitely introducing more features to allow creators, so people who like to create content, to put more stuff out. So you see new stuff being rolled out all the time. Instagram is primarily a visual platform. Facebook's primarily a community platform. Twitter's about conversation and quick sound bites. Clubhouse is your audio. So respect and think about, well, where does my message, or how does my intention for social, how does it connect to what the platform does, and how can I choose platforms for me and that makes sense for me. So for me, I use LinkedIn a lot because I use it for business. I don't really use Twitter, and I use Instagram. And actually, I would say don't try and be on every platform because it will be overwhelming. So choose, 1, 2, 3 maximum, I would say, platforms that you want to be on, and commit to those platforms. This image here down the bottom of this girl, that was an influencer that a particular brand did on a particular platform. So she had a massive following, so they went to that platform. It makes sense when you say it out loud, but actually it can be easy to try and force something or make something work across platforms that don't. And then finally, on the principle stuff, just actually being aware that you don't have to say something about everything. Strategic silence, I think, can be really important. So if your brand or you as a person don't have a view on something, like, it's okay to be quiet. It's okay to just say, you know what, I'm not gonna say something on this issue, and that's important too. Okay, so a few real life examples. So I hope that most of you have heard of Simon Sinek. I've tried to pick some people that you would know, as well as maybe some that you're not so familiar with. So what works about this profile? Well, a few things. Just gonna have some water. Firstly, he has one core principle that everything he is known for. He is known for, start with why. He's known for one thing, and he's been really clear about being known and getting known for that one thing. He sets out his stall. So this is actually his website here in the top left. He sets out his stall about what he stands for, what he believes. So that's his purpose stuff. I believe in this. He sets out why he's there consistently across platforms. So I believe in this, and the reason that what I'm doing, my purpose is to inspire someone every day. That's why I'm here. So he's at a level in terms of his brand where he doesn't really need to say, well, I'm a leadership expert and I wrote Start with Why, because we all know what he's doing. We might need to still say that, but actually setting out your sort of why as well somewhere in your stuff, even if it's not at the top level, it does matter. I think that his primary platform is Twitter, because if you look at a lot of his content, it's quite short, it's quite soundbitey, and that tends to get repurposed across. So over here is his LinkedIn post, here you've got his Twitter post, exactly the same one, just repurposed for a platform. So absolutely do that if you want to be on more than one platform, then absolutely repurpose. But I think that's obviously how he likes to write. So what you can work with you, like, how do you like to communicate? Do you like to talk? Do you like to write things short and sweet? Do you like to, you can just do audio sound bites. You can do something that works for you and the way that you like to express yourself, and that will feel most natural to you. So if you don't like writing reams and reams and reams, don't write reams. If it's good enough, if a few lines is good enough for Simon, it's good enough for us, I reckon. And then he talks around like those core principles. So everything he then talks about is, you know, why. You will see it's live with why, start with why. He's got another why book as well. So it's all consistent, and you know that he's all about why. And that works really well. You'll see him using video, so on his website. It's not unusual in his other profiles as well. So a real mix of content, working really lovely. And consistent look and feel. Of course, he's got of course he's probably, you know, going to have a massive team doing all that for him, but it's consistent look and feel. And also he's aligning himself with people that stand for the same things. So Brené Brown, courage, vulnerability, shame, that's what she's known for, and has her talks around that. So he's aligning with people that sort of stand for, have the same feel as him, have the same personality and tone, both very inspirational speakers. And probably have similar audiences. So you can cross-populate your audiences when you have one with people that will have similar audiences that you want to reach. So that's some things that I think that are working really logically about his profile. Hopefully give you a few ideas there. This is another great example of a profile I think works really well for a brand. So Juliet Davenport of Good Energy. So she is the CEO and the founder, and you can see again she's using the company brand graphics for her personal profile, but she's got a lovely mix of content. So she's got a podcast, so she's talking about that naturally on social, but she's got a hashtag to amplify reach. That's working really nicely. She's putting out really valuable how-to content around her topic of expertise, which you want to be doing if you want to be looking to position as an expert for certain things. She's talking about in the moment the things that she's doing that give her credibility. So she's talking about, you know, she's just done a board meeting. It's natural, it feels organic, it feels like stuff that, yes, but what it's doing is it's building credibility of her as a personal brand and her personal profile. And then what was really interesting is after I'd stalked her for this presentation, Facebook started retargeting me with consumer ads. So on those consumer ads, which I thought was really interesting, was her telling the story of the company. So they were using her saying, this is why we set up the company, because when we tell stories as individuals, you know, we connect more naturally. This is why I set it up. This is why we did it. This is how we did it. This is what mattered to me personally. And so you're drawn in then as a consumer to go and look at the website and potentially sign up. So really, really front facing that brand, doing a lovely job of mixed content, in the moment content, expertise content. Definitely go and check her out for some ideas and inspiration if you want, or content ideas. Great job. Coop Parry. So this is, they position as a rebel of accountancy, so they're known as a challenger brand, so they're sort of disrupting the industry with being a bit different. We're not boring accountants, that's the position. And I think they've done a really lovely job of empowering their people. So you've got Aid is the chief exec, and he's, you know, he's working class lad from Stoke is his sort of line. But you really get a flavour of that in his content. So in his content, it's like grab a bovril or a pie and, you know, come and sit down to the match. And you get a sense of him just being, you know, bit of a lad, bit of a human, but really, really great bloke, you know. And I think that sort of, you're then drawn to that. You're either drawn to it or you're not. And that's the great thing, is when you show up as a human, then no, you're not going to be for everyone, but that's okay, because the right people should connect with you if you are you. And then when you look at some of their individual staff profiles, you will see that a lot of them are using their profiles really nicely to talk about their work, to talk about topics. So this is a video on International Women's Day, and this is their head of creative talking about what inspires him. They have a podcast as well. So they've really got their act together, I would say, in terms of using their personal profiles to really amplify the corporate brand. So definitely check that one out for some inspiration if that's one of your ideals. And then me, by no means do I call myself the social media guru. There are people who are doing it a lot longer than me and have massive followings, but I do have my story to share, and a little bit of about, you know, what's actually worked for me, or what has found helps. So for me, personal stories always work. People love stories. They're 22 times more memorable, and we can't help but watch them. So personal stories, I share my story around visibility and learning how to be authentic. And I talk about being the face of your brand. That's one of the things. So there's lots of me in my face. Yes, it feels awkward sometimes. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't like posting pictures of my chubby face all the time, but people are drawn to faces. We just are. It's how we're programmed. So people will connect with you more. Consistent really in terms of like colours and branding again, so being clear about that can help you with a personal profile. You don't have to have your own, you know, brand book for a person, but it can help. I find videos really helpful, as mentioned. My personal experience is people do connect really well on video. If you hate videos, that's okay, you don't have to use it, but it can be really useful. Just giving loads of value. So if you know your audience, if you know the topics that people are talking about, literally writing posts that say, you know, so for me, some of the things that people talk about is, how do I know which story to share? Or how do I navigate the personal and professional line of showing up on social? So I will literally write posts that say that in a top line to get their attention and to talk to people. So talk to the issues that people are struggling with, and giving them value will make people want to come back to you. And yeah, this is client videos as well. So social proof about what you're doing and who you're helping continues to build your credibility. So that's a little bit about me and how I've used the platforms. And then really just trying to say sort of social housing conversations. So I'm sure there are millions more examples that you are aware of. And I thought it might be nice actually, just if you know of any, pop them in the chat. You can share them and take examples away from each other of people that you enjoy following or enjoy in the sector. But a few examples here really of people that I think are having conversations or are doing things in the sector that may be interesting to you, for you to get involved with. And remember, you know, when you have content and when you start a conversation, that is content too, that is visibility too. So you don't always have to have your own organic content, you can support others. So we are very nearly there, and then there will be a few moments for Q&A. So just some tips or last minute thoughts to take away is, by all means, set metrics if you want to around your social and your growth, but don't get hung up on the numbers, because ultimately what matters is the conversations that you're having and the results off the back of that. It's very easy with social to get down a bit of a numbers hole about how many likes and how many followers and how many and what's my audience looking like. And actually that's not necessarily the right thing. So you may well get results out of a small audience, whereas other people might be doing something totally different with a big audience. Metrics are not the end be all and end all. Consistently isn't constantly, so get really clear on how often you want to show up. Choose your feed. So if you want to be on social and enjoy it, choose the people you enjoy following and the hashtags you enjoy following, and you're much more likely to want to engage in those conversations because you've got purpose and actually the things you want to talk about and have something to add. Have conversations. It means content. If people like your comment on a post, then you've got an idea to write a new post. So there's lots of ways you can sort of just get involved in having conversations to create content without actually feeling like you're churning stuff out all day. Lead with value, already said it, but absolutely lead with value. Think about, would I read this? Why am I saying this? And how does it help the person on the other end? And that will do you really, really, really well. And finally, entertainment is value. So the top reason that people go on social still is for entertainment. And we think we've got to be serious and actually, okay, yes, there are times we need to be appropriate for our brand, but entertainment is still the #1 reason that humans like social as humans. So keep it human and be yourself. There are a few tools there. I won't go through them all in detail for you to take away and have a look. So scheduling tools, if you want to make graphics, really easy Canva tools. Grammarly plugs into social. Less typos, slightly. Sometimes I still have typos. Blog headline testers, so you can test how well headlines will catch people's attention. Some scheduling tools and also actually all of the stats, loads of great articles around stats if you want to learn more. If you want to get people's eyes on your profile picture and find out what they actually think about it, you can go to something called Photo Feeler and upload it and get to vote. And there's a great app for LinkedIn called Shield app, which is really, really interesting in terms of how posts are performing and understanding what people are thinking about your posts. So hopefully they're useful and practical tools you can take away as well. And then finally, just to wrap up, so the most important thing about social is that we can just put it off and put it off and put it off and overthink it. So the challenge today, if you would like to, is just to copy this I've written it for LinkedIn because that's where I am and I know best, but feel free to tweak or change around for your platform if you want to. Rose is going to drop it into the chat, I think, and just get out there right now. Just grab it, or after the session, grab it, pop it on your social, and then there's a hashtag as well. You can follow each other, you can connect with people from today. You don't know where connections are ever going to go. And if you want to put a commitment down, go for it. You know, say where you're going to show up, say what how long, when you're going to show up, and making it public makes it real to you, and I hope will help you to get started on your journey, or to boost your connections if you're already out there and looking to find more people to engage with.
Thank you, Val. That was so good. That was really good. I've jotted down lots of notes and the first thing that came to my mind was 8 social media accounts. We said at the start, on average, people have 8 social media platforms. And I was like, I don't have 8 social media platforms. And then I went through and counted them up, and I think I've got about 7.
Yeah.
And I do find it does feel a little bit overwhelming, but I think what you've gone through today has been really helpful. We've got time for questions now. There's one that's coming from Carol Smith. And she says, thanks for this excellent presentation, Val. It's really clear how to deal with one topic or business, but how do you improve your personal profile if you're involved with 4 or 5 things you're passionate about and involved in at senior levels?
Yeah, okay. So I think, you know, ideally we're known for one thing, but often when it comes to the multiple things, I think you can often find a thread about why you do all those things, which is about you and your purpose. There will be a belief or a value about you as a person of why you are involved with those things. So at a top level, you will have sort of a purpose and a position for you. And then I think you're going to have to just either decide that for a time you talk about one thing if you want to raise your profile in a particular area, or you just circulate your content. So you can have content pillars and just say, well, okay, this week I'm talking about this version of, so normally at the top of your messages, I don't know, let's say improving lives. This week I'm going to talk about improving lives in health, because that I'm doing, I don't know, chair or whatever in terms of that. This week I'm talking about improving lives in housing. This week I'm talking about improving lives by doing charity work. But if you look for that top level theme, it can start to make it feel cohesive and try to thread through a top level message into everything you're putting out. That can start to tie you together, a person, and not feel too fragmented. And then I think being really clear about breaking down what your goals and intentions are for particular times. So you might say, for 3 months I've got a goal around this, so I'm going to focus on connections around this and conversations around this, and hopefully that helps a bit just to break it down.
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea of having the one sort of common theme and how you sort of pull those strands down from that. That'd be really helpful. Thank you. And I think one that's pertinent to today, because we had a debate before the session started today about the best hashtag to use for today's session. But Janine's asked, thinking about Twitter, what's the best way of finding out the hashtags most likely to improve visibility of your tweets? And the same for LinkedIn. Thank you.
So I can talk to you about LinkedIn because I know that better, but I would imagine the same things for Twitter. So you can type in the hashtag in the search bar on LinkedIn and it will tell you how many people are following it. And I imagine there's the same feature on Twitter. It's not my primary platform, but there will be. So you can just find out how many people are following it. So, and what I would say with hashtags is you can go for like big ones. So UK housing has a pretty good following, social housing has a pretty good following. What you can do also is look for really niche ones. So it's the same as with like Google search terms and things. You know, the big ones will have a big following, so they will get big visibility. But there might be niche ones that speak to people that are really, really, really interested in that topic, and it's so specific that barely anyone's following it, but they might be the people you need to get in front of. So I would do that piece of research and then play with it and play with what views you get and try different ones. Again, try committing to some for a certain period of time and test it. The great thing about social is you can just change it and test it all the time. There's no right or wrong, but that would be how I would approach trying those things out.
Great, thank you. I didn't actually know you could search hashtags on LinkedIn, so I will do that now. One that I'm going to read out, we've got lots coming through, but one I'm picking out because I feel like this sometimes as well, is from Lucy. And she says, I find LinkedIn is dominated by posts that come across as showing off rather than contributing to a discussion or informing people. how do you avoid that? And I think I've been there when sharing things I've done as well on LinkedIn, but it feels like I'm saying, look at me, look at what I've done, but it's not, you want to sort of say,
Yeah.
building your profile, but how do you avoid that?
Yeah, well, it's massive. The whole showing off thing, I don't want to brag, I don't want to show off, it's massive.
Yeah.
I think it's a massive part of our culture particularly. So I've done some work with sort of people overseas, and I think it's a real British thing actually. Is we're quite humble and we don't really talk about ourselves, and you know, you get a bit of that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the ways, I think it's a mindset thing. So, okay, you might get some people that do want to show off, but for those of us that actually are raising a profile for purpose and raising a profile to make a difference in the world, then I think it comes down to a mindset thing. And where the way that I deal with it is that I can't reach people with this message. I can't achieve whatever it is I'm trying to do in terms of purpose unless I get out there and show my face. And 9 times out of 10, I think as well, like, often people aren't thinking that. If they know you particularly, and they know you're not a show off, they're not going to be thinking that. They're going to be thinking, oh, that's great, she's really done that. Go you. Even though it can feel awkward. So I think it does come down to a mindset thing, and also just talking about it sometimes in an organic way can help. So sometimes on LinkedIn particularly, I think it is one of those platforms where, you know, you don't want to be seen to be showing off. Some platforms are a bit more acceptable in terms of that culture, but I sometimes talk about client quotes and stuff and just go, oh, it's really nice, I got this bit of feedback, you know, as opposed to, woohoo, look at my client said I'm great. So, or, you know, this is what I've learned from this, and by the way, if you don't talk about your clients, then people aren't going to know what you're doing either, so you might want to do it, like, this is why I'm doing it. And so that can be really helpful as well, is just telling people, like, I'm telling you about this because I'm really proud of it, because this is why I do what I do. You know, so thinking about how you want to come across, why you're sharing it, what is the intention of this post, is always a great one to come back to if you're struggling with that mindset wise.
Okay, great. I'll bear it in mind and try not to be.
Intention of the post, pop it on a post-it.
Yeah, try not to be too humble about things. Like, maybe you want to read this article I wrote, but maybe not. No big deal.
Maybe not. But actually, like, then we're stopping people from seeing the stuff that we're doing, and then it can impact. So, yeah. Thank
you. That's a great tip. Got time for a couple more. So someone said here, is it best to make a big change and showing lots more personality, or trying to change your post more gradually?
I don't think it matters if it's true to you.
Okay.
So I think you can just come out, as it were, and just say, actually, I've decided to share with you a bit more about me on social media because I want to get to know you, and this is why. So here's a bit about me. And just be a human. I think if it's truly you and it's something that feels like a reflection of you, like, it's not, you know, we don't need to overcraft it in front of ourselves. It is an extension of who we are. So for sure, if there's a dramatic change about how you're showing up, then you might want to say something about that. If that feels more comfortable, you can do. But and if you would, I think the other thing to think about when it comes to how you show up on social is, I like to think about, how do you show up in other environments? It's just another environment. If you were going to walk into a, you know, I don't know, party or a networking meeting or wherever else it might be, and you would never be like that, and then on social you're this version of you over here, like, people are going to be like, what's going on with her, or him, or, you know, that's a bit weird. It doesn't feel, it's that authenticity piece and integrity piece about who you are and being consistent with who you are. So thinking about how you want to show up and how you would show up elsewhere, I think can be really helpful as well. And that is the weird thing about social, is it sort of merges all your worlds. That's why it can be a little bit intimidating, I think, because we sort of almost create our personas, you know, it's my work persona, and here's my home persona, and here's my fun persona, and I think that's a really good tip to think about how you would be if you were in person networking. What would you want to say? What do you want to convey, and be who you are, and not have this slightly odd professional persona, which sometimes I can have on LinkedIn in particular. And the other thing is, like, just to say, like, if you go all out and go like dead personal, and you've not done that, you probably will have a vulnerability hangover, which is the next day you're like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And why did I say that? That's really normal. So just, like, be a little bit gentle with yourself, maybe, in terms of just doing it in a way that doesn't feel too freaky out the next day.
Brill, thank you. Someone else has said, if we take maybe one or two more, she said, so Nicola's asked, what's the biggest tip for growing a Facebook group? I don't know if you mentioned Facebook in particular, but yeah, you've got any tips?
Yeah, so I started my business on a Facebook group. So it has to come down to value. Why do people want to be in the group? Why is it worth them spending their time hanging out in your group? And when you get clear on that, then it's really simple. Go and talk to people about it wherever they are. So I used to go into other people's groups and for the ones that were allowed, promote it there. So wherever you've got an audience or someone else has got an audience you can go in front of. So maybe you can go and do a training in front of somebody else's audience if you don't have one, and invite people to your group. Same principle with groups. If somebody else has a group that you can go and be in and invite people to your group, do that. If you have an audience already on different platforms, you can invite them and collect them in your Facebook group. But the most important thing is, why should they bother? If you haven't got that message right, it doesn't matter how much you promote it, you won't get anyone join. So that would be where I'd go.
Great, thank you, Val. And I think I'm conscious of time, so I know we haven't managed to answer all the questions, but it's been great to have so much engagement from everyone sending their questions through. A recording of this session will be made available, and you'll receive the link to that. And I will double check regarding the slides and let you know if you're going to get the slides sent round. Thank you everyone for joining today. If you'd like to know more about Wish, look on the website, and you can also see the upcoming other national webinars and events that we've got planned. And thank you everyone for your engagement and for coming along, and thank you to Val for taking the time today to talk to us. It's really, really helpful.
You're more than welcome.
Thanks everyone.
Anything, just probably DM me on LinkedIn is the easiest thing.
There's lots of thanks in the group.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.